If you look at your programs, you'll see session 1 starts with a question: why good governance? Well, the reason is that every one of us, as I said last night in a television interview here in Mauritius, every person walking in the streets of Mauritius is in fact impacted by governance, be it public governance or governance in the private sector. The providers of capital today happen to be all of us, because the majority of capital provided comes from financial institutions and pension funds, and that is, of course, money of the citizens of a country. So that's a reason why governance is important to all of us. But what is good governance? Well, good governance, as Jane touched upon, is not a mindless, quantitative checklist exercise. That was evidenced by Enron. If we'd done a checklist of Enron, we may have come to the conclusion that this is a well-governed company because it had a preponderance of outside directors. It had all the relevant subcommittees: audit, compensation, nomination, governance committee, and yet it was absolutely dysfunctional because of the corporate sin of self-interest, greed by Mr. Skilling and Mr. Lay. And it was a demonstration of a lack of intellectual honesty. And good governance is based on a foundation of intellectual honesty with responsibility, accountability, fairness, and transparency. So that is what good governance is. But in the discussion today, we're also going to talk about good governance is good for business. And good business, people are asked, most people think that this is about shareholder value. Well, it is about value, but it's about value creation and sustained value creation. Shareholder value is one aspect of value. Another aspect is solutions which a company might find to the needs, interests, and expectations of its stakeholders after they've identified those stakeholders linked to the business of the company. And the third one is to have beneficial outcomes for all your stakeholders. And the true value-creating company is the one that integrates all three of these issues. And you find great companies today, and I mentioned some of them last night, great multinational enterprises such as Unilever, Procter & Gamble, Siemens, SAB Miller, Walmart, many examples of companies that have embedded sustainability into their long-term strategy in order to give them a competitive advantage in the marketplace. And that is the true test today in the world in which we find ourselves, the changed world I spoke about last night, for creating value on a sustained basis. Well, governing for sustainability, the very next topic, involves the critical interdependencies in today's changed world of financial aspects, human capital, which also incorporates human rights, society, environment, the reality that we're working with natural assets that are declining, and yet we have to make more with less because we've got population growth. We've got manufactured capital, and one of the most critical capital aspects that boards have to apply their collective minds to these days is intellectual capital. Because it is innovation and the intellectual property of companies that is actually going to sustain all of us in the long term, in a world in which we have already water scarcity, food shortages, and scientists estimate for you and I to continue to board and lodge on this planet, we need another 20% of this planet, which of course we do not have. And in those circumstances, sustainability has become an absolutely critical issue in the question of governance. And at the Global Reporting Initiative, which is the #1 standard setter for sustainability reporting, we concluded several years ago that governance, the way people direct and steer companies and manage them, strategy, short, medium, and particularly long term, and the sustainability issues material to the business of that company, as water is to the beverage manufacturer, as I mentioned last night, are actually inseparable. You cannot separate them if you're going to create a sustainable business. So let me just conclude by saying this, that at the Global Reporting Initiative, we wrote an article which we call Tigers. And this has got nothing to do with that magnificent creature found in India. But it's an acronym for T is for transparency, I is for integrated reporting, which is the modern corporate reporting. The international framework was issued on Monday this week, 12th of September. G is for governance, good governance. E is environmental factors. R is for responsible investment. Those financial institutions, excuse me, who are investing your money have to apply their minds to make responsible investments by assessing the quality of governance and the quality of the sustainability reporting of the company and the traceability of products that are input products into the main product of the company in which they're investing your money in the equity of that company. And S, of course, is for society. So all those factors have to be taken into account in the question of sustainability when dealing with companies. So